Welcome back, guys. Wanted to talk about something that was briefly touched on in my How Does Leasing Work video. A very frequent comment that I get when I talk about money is, does that include taxes? And if you watch that full video, and I understand, that first of all, that is a very long video. I do understand as well that I tend to do longer videos. So I understand if guys don't watch the full video. But the content is there, and in that particular video, I talk about taxes. But that's probably one of the most frequent questions that I get is, you talk about earning $1,100 a week, $1,200 a week, a bigger week, earning $1,700, $1,800, $1,900, having a fantastic week and earning $2,400 in a week. And then if you watch the video, how much did I make when $58,000? A lot of people ask, does that include taxes? No, it doesn't. And if you watch that video, and I'll put the link in the description if you haven't seen it, it's a very long video. It's a very involved video where I break down line by line how leasing works. It's a settlement sheet, the way Prime pays its lease operators. They break it down about as detailed as you can get. Here's how much you earned on each trip. Here's how much is taken away for everything. So I go through all that, I explain it, and you can figure out how leasing works based on that particular video. So bottom line is, I explain what I personally do for taxes, but I wanted to go because it is tax season. I'm recording this in the middle of February. It'll probably be online late February, early March. If you don't know, I don't record my video every Friday and then upload it. I actually have kind of crummy internet at home. So I tend to record things in advance and then make them public videos to view on Friday nights, Saturday mornings. So basically, what I'm talking about is, this is tax season. A lot of folks are curious, well, how does taxes work for independent contractors, lease operators with Prime? Again, if you watch the video, it's in the description. I personally take 30% of what I earn, and I wrote it down. The number that you're going to see in that video, the week that I broke down everything, I ran. Boy, I'd have to go back and watch the whole video. So I apologize. I think I took 2 days off, and I ran 6 loads, which would have meant that there would have been a day that I had 2 loads. But I think I had, or maybe I ran 6 out of 7 days, and I had an evening off, something along those lines. At any rate, moral of the story was, I know I had one single day off there, and I earned $1,259.05 was my take-home pre-tax for the video that's in the description. What my wife and I do, we immediately, before we start paying the bills, whatever, we take 30% off the top of that and put that into a savings account. It's just, for our purposes, we label that as tax savings. And I pay quarterly estimated tax. I use Abacus CPA. That is a CPA company in Springfield, Missouri. They actually lease space within Prime's terminal. You are not required by any stretch of the imagination to use that company. Obviously, based on the agreement that they have with Prime, they have immediate access to your settlements. You don't have to mail them in. You don't have to fax them in. You don't have to email them. They get an immediate copy if you agree to use their services. They bill you once a week when you get your settlement. You'll see a note on there for accounting services. They'll bill you when you do your taxes. They'll bill you when they do the quarterly estimates. It's all factored in, so it's quick, easy, painless. Some guys at Prime, and I've read complaints that they are not aggressive as far as deductions. Personally, I had a good experience with them my first year. This is going to be my second year of filing taxes with them. So far, so good. We'll, moving forward, we'll see. But like I said, I have heard some bad reviews. Personally, my experience has been good with Abacus CPA. So anyway, 30% comes right off the top. We put that into an account. Every quarter, we get an email or a message. Actually, we get a message. I apologize. It's not an email. We get a message on the Qualcomm, which is, again, the computer in the truck. And it says, your estimated quarterly income tax for federal is this dollar amount. And I can't tell you what your quarterly estimate's going to be. It completely depends on how much you run. It depends on how much you earn in those 3 or 4 months. And I say 3 or 4 months because you would think there's 12 months. It should be each 3 months there's a new quarter, but that's not how it works. The federal government is the federal government, and sometimes they do things weird. So you're going to get your quarterly estimate. I have had quarterly estimates $3,000, $4,000. And then you're going to get a state. And again, that's based on what I run. If you run and you get a quarterly estimate of $5,000, please don't put a comment and say, you didn't tell me it would be $5,000. I'm not you, you're not me. It is what you might get a quarterly estimate of $1,000. It all depends on how many miles you run. It's completely based on what you're doing and how much money you take home. So there you go. So anyway, you're going to get that quarterly estimate. You're going to have to do that by yourself. You're going to have to pay that to the federal government. You're going to have to pay that to the state that you live in. So I get a federal estimate. You go to irs.gov. It's pretty self-explanatory how to do it on the website. Whatever state you live in. I live in Indiana right now. State website, pretty self-explanatory. If you can't figure it out for yourself, Abacus CPAs will help you with that. And I have never come up short. I got money back last year doing it that way. And like I said, I am thus far happy with Abacus. Just so you have an idea, and if you don't want to go back and watch that video, again, $1,259.05 was how much I earned the week that I showed in the video. 30% is $377.72. So that's the dollar amount that we would transfer. And again, Abacus isn't going to hold your hand. You may find a CPA or an accountant or, whomever. And a CPA, if you don't know, is a certified public accountant. You may find somebody who does it all for you. But you should really, if you're going to own your own business, be able to pay your own taxes. You probably don't want somebody to do everything for you. You should be able to read your settlements. And Prime will miss, and it may be something that you didn't scan all the pieces of paper that you have to scan. This is going a little bit further, but there's paperwork involved when you transport materials. You have to scan that paperwork. Prime has an app on the phone. If you can go back to my cell phone video, you scan all that in using your phone and it gets sent into Prime. If you don't scan all of the paperwork in, you're not going to get paid. Here, is the piece of paper for, this is called the bill of lading for what I'm hauling today. It's some soy shortening. But on top of that, if I just scan that and I don't scan the rest of this stuff, this is a trip sheet, tells you the trip number, where it's going, where it picked up. Here is the wash ticket from Decatur Clean. If you don't scan all of this stuff, the company I'm delivering to is going to say, well, we're not going to pay for it, because how do we, if I don't scan the wash ticket, the company's going to say, well, how do we know that the trailer was clean before that trailer was loaded? So they want all of that paperwork in line. So that's why I say don't rely on someone else to handle the paperwork. Don't rely on a CPA that you find who says, well, you're not going to even have to look at your settlement sheets, we'll do it all for you. Well, you're the one who ran the loads, so you're the one who's going to know at the end of the week if you got paid for everything that you did. And if you keep track of, and personally, I write down everything that I do, and I keep a running total of how much money I have for a given week. And if I don't have every trip in there, I know that my CPA is not going to know how many trips I ran in a given week. So bottom line, Abacus then collects all the materials, and it's up to you again. If you have a spouse who works, you have to get all those materials transferred over to your CPA, their W-2 forms. Prime, if you're a lease operator, independent contractor, will pay you on a 1099, so you will not get a W-2 form. Basically, a 1099 is just going to say you earned this dollar amount. They don't take anything out. They do not take income tax out. They do not take payroll taxes. They don't take any of that stuff out, and that is up to you. And if you know income tax law and you know business law in terms of how to file your own taxes, maybe you don't need a CPA. Personally, I had never done that before, so hiring a CPA, I think, for someone who's new to the industry is probably a good idea. But I just wanted to touch on that since this is tax season. Folks are heading to H&R Block and everywhere else, Jackson Hewitt, and I used to do that myself. But you get yourself into an industry where you have very specific things you can deduct. You can deduct every time that you're on the truck. You can deduct per diem, which is the amount of money you would spend if you were eating. You can deduct things like your cell phone bill. There are so many things that you can deduct, and that's the conversation you can have with your CPA. And like I said, that's a conversation. You can make that decision whether you want to go with Abacus CPA. If you decide to go and become a lease operator, you will be required to have a meeting, go through a class with Abacus. Even if you don't want to use Abacus, they're going to make you go through that class, because there are guys, quite frankly, that start leasing, see that check with $1,259 and some odd cents, and don't even think about putting 30% in the bank. And at the end of a year, they haven't paid any quarterly taxes, and all of a sudden they get a bill for $20,000 for their income tax. And that'll hit you really hard, because you've been spending that money, and all of a sudden you don't have enough to pay your $20,000 income tax bill. So if you don't use Abacus, I suggest using a CPA of some variety, again, unless you are very well versed in income tax law. So like I said, personally, I put 30% in the bank. It sits there. It is not, okay, well, it's a rainy day, let's go out and buy X, Y, and Z. It's not, well, we're short on a bill, let's use that money for that. That is strictly for income tax purposes and our quarterly estimate. And if there's extra money in there, great. If you save 30% and consistently your CPA is overestimating that amount, and you end up having an extra $1,000 in there, that's fantastic news. I wouldn't immediately say, well, we need to forget about putting 30%, let's move to 20%. Maybe after a year or two, you can adjust that percentage. Personally, I would rather have more in there than I need than to get to the end of the year and have only put 20% in, paid our quarterly estimates, and then have the CPA come back and say, well, we underpaid by $8,000, so you're going to have to come up with $8,000 for your tax bill. So just some thoughts on taxes and trucking. It's a little bit different, especially since you're not a W-2. You're not an actual employee. You are self-employed as a independent contractor. I'm sure I'm going to get some comments here down below about how 1099 employees should be illegal. It is what it is. It's how Prime operates. It's how a number of leasing companies operate. I'm not here to tell you it's right or it's wrong. It should be, it shouldn't be. It is the way Prime and a number of companies operate. If you don't want to do it, nobody's holding a gun to your head. That's, I think, the bottom line. So, that's my thoughts on taxes. If you're going to do lease, put some money away. You don't have to do 30% if you want to put 20, 25. That's up to you. It's, and again, like I said, I cannot tell you how much you're going to owe in a given quarter with your quarterly estimate. Yeah, some quarters are 3 months, some quarters are 4 months. You're obviously going to owe more money in the 4-month quarter than in the 3-month quarter because you're going to earn more over a 4-month period. But there you go. Some thoughts on taxes. Again, I apologize. These videos that are on money tend to go a little longer. But I hope you find it all useful. Again, I'll put a link to the video in the description about how leasing works so you can watch that video if you have not. Also, a link in the description to the application if you would like to come to Prime. And thanks for watching. Hope tax season is treating you well. If you want to try something different, maybe time for a change for your career, you can try that application. It'll take you right to it if you want to come to Prime. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.